Hey, welcome back to the third devlog of Making Game Theory. It's my card game. This past week, I was able to accomplish three main things. One was the math and probability and balancing of the game. Number two was work a little bit more on part of the redesign. And number three is do some manufacturing research and print out and cut and assemble some boxes. So glad you could be here. If you like these videos, make sure to like, subscribe, hit the notifications bell below, and follow me on Instagram for behind the scenes content and what's coming up in my next videos. Let's get into this. To start off, I want to talk you through the balancing of game theory and what that looks like. Basically what happened, and I had alluded to this before, is that these cards originally were just randomly rolled. I took 4 dice, and that's how I made all of the sets of 4. We came to find out that there was a little bit of imbalance. Some of the colors were better than the other ones. So I wanted to see if there was a mathematical way or a statistical way to balance out the game. So I started watching a bunch of YouTube videos on math, statistics, probability, other people who have had similar concerns with their games, and it really got so mathed, for lack of a better word, that the game felt inorganic. First things first, I had to make an inventory of what cards I would need. We can talk about the 71 number later, but that has to do with manufacturing and how many 2.5-inch cards fit on an individual sheet of paper from a manufacturer. The player cards, modifier cards, and instruction cards are basically static, so I took those as the cards I would need out of that sheet of paper, and then all the remainder were the ones I had for dice cards. In this case, we had 32 cards left that would be available to make into dice cards, and since I'm planning on making them front and back, just like you can see here, I need to figure out a way to balance each of these cards. Start off with the math side of things. The possible number of cards is 1,296. The problem is, how do you turn 1,296 into 64? The first thought I had was to do this. If we had a card, for example, that was a 1, 4, 4, 4, each number representing a different colored dice, that was basically the same gameplay-wise as a 4, 1, 4, 4. And you can extrapolate that and do the next two. And that way, it would be a perfectly balanced game. I could, basically take that 64 number right here, divide that by 4, and then choose 4 types of cards and repeat that pattern for each color. One problem I noticed quickly was that takes away a lot of the organic feeling of the game, and it just really didn't feel unique at all. And not to mention the modifier cards that you can see in the video prior, up here, I'll link it in the description. The modifier cards solved the issue of variability and advantages in one type of dice. Now, I did want to redo the dice, and I did want to make sure that there were points being thrown on the board almost every round. But if you get ties too often, it's not a very fun experience. Instead of doing what I did prior, where I physically rolled 4 dice to create those sets, I wanted to find an easier solution, and it just so happens that I know some coding. So I figured, why not just write myself a program? And that's what I did. I decided to use Python because that's what I started learning last year, about 3 months from now, actually, a year ago. And we started off with my Pseudo Code. So down here on my iPad, you can see that the first goal was to create a random set of values, 1 through 6, 4 times, and that would create a dice card. Now I need to repeat that action, X amount of times, in this case 64 for 64 cards. If more than 2 numbers in a set are equal, so 3 or 4 dice are the same, I want the whole set to be refreshed. I don't want that in my cards. And then finally, I want to be able to take this data and export it as a CSV file. Right here is how I ended up making that happen. Basically, is I would randomly roll my dice, and then I would compare if red is equal to blue, yellow, or gray, and then if blue is equal to yellow or gray, and then if yellow is equal to gray. And every time there was a yes in that scenario, I would add a number to a variable. Let's dive into my computer and I'll show you exactly what I'm talking about. Here is my software. I decided to call it DieGen for dice generation, and it's a lot simpler than it may look if you don't know what you're looking at. These right here are the functions that are defining what is happening. This is just a point of data to store data in, and then this is my equal dice variable that I talked about when comparing dice values. The entire meat of this operation basically happens here, and if you don't know much about coding, this is just saying for a range of 64, so for 64 times, I want you to roll dice right here and check those dice to see if they have more than 2 similar dice per set. And keep doing that until you get a set that doesn't. When you have a set that has 2 or less equal dice, I want you to take that data, add it to an array, which is just basically a set of information, and then export it as a CSV. It's pretty slick. I did copy and paste this bottom part from Stack Overflow, so I can't take full credit, but I'll just show you what it looks like here. If I do Command B, you can see it just created a new file, which is right here, dice CSV, and if I open up this, it will have everything that I need, and I don't have to physically roll those. So this is probably my thing I'm most excited about that I did this week. Got it out in a day, but I did a lot of thinking beforehand to get to this solution. Coding wasn't even on my radar at the beginning. Now this software or program I just wrote, I can actually manipulate it so I can change the amount of dice that are the same, that are allowed to be in a set, and I can also easily change the number of sets that we want. So if I wanted to do 100 dice cards, that would be just a couple clicks away. Next up was I created these boxes. So my goal with this one, with doing the manufacturing research, I said, you know, what kind of box? I really like the 2-piece boxes, but for this type of game, it might not be necessary with the amount of cards. But my goal long-term is to be able to physically manufacture these at my house. I think it would be quite an achievement and really cool if I could make a full copy of the game at home with very similar results as if you went to a manufacturer. Obviously it can't be the same, but if we can get really close, that would be super cool. I was pretty happy with the way these boxes turned out. I want to redo the flap. It's way too small. But the inside is solid. It works just like you would see like a bicycle card box or anything like that. And here on my computer, you can see this is the layout that I'm using, and I will be tweaking it. It's got my dash lines for where to bend, and then the other ones, the cut lines. And yeah, it fits on an 8.5, 11, just barely. Like I couldn't go any smaller. So that worked out perfect. I do have some things I need to modify, and ultimately this was a fun experiment, but I need to wait until I see the thickness of a final set of cards before I finalize any work on the box. The last thing I want to show you on my iPad is some of the work I did right here. The modifier cards have 4 different types. There's indecisive, which are just blank cards. You have a dice swap card, rotate, and shift up. They all modify the game board in some way, and you actually modify your opponent's columns when doing so. But I still don't have art for them, and I wanted to create some symbols so I could reference those symbols in the instructions, and then when you're playing the game, the cards just have a clean, fresh look to them. Here's the things I've got. So inventory-wise, I need 3 blank ones. Those will be very similar to the player cards that I already have, just more blank cards. And then dice swap, rotate, and shift up are the ones I need stuff for. I was thinking of just doing a simple like explanation like dice swap, showing 2, rotate, you take the top card in the column and put it on the bottom, and the bottom on the top, and the shift up, all the cards go up 1, and the top card comes down to the bottom of the column. It's a really simple design, but I did a little bit more work and put it over here on my computer, and you can see that here. This is the rotate one, and then I have shift up as well. I'm still playing around with the designs. They're not finalized. I'm just trying to get the shape and form and feel down, and we'll see. I'm not 100% on them yet. We'll see where they end up, and that will probably be, you know, one of next week's projects. That is it for today, guys. I wanted to give you an update to see where I am at. I did a lot of work, like I said. It just seemed really jumbled because I didn't want to just stick in one area this week. But next up is for sure going to be working on the dice cards. I did learn some more about Affinity Publisher, which is the software I use, and some of the awesome features it has, which will make my life way easier. So I can do a video on that to show you my workflow if you're interested, and I need to get those dice all made up and printed out and cut. I hope you are enjoying what you're seeing here. Once again, I really appreciate your support. I just want to give a quick shout out to you guys. We just got to 100 subscribers, which is crazy. I don't know, it's a small number, but I still think it's really cool. If you are getting some benefit out of this, make sure to comment, like, and subscribe, share with your friends, and I hope what I'm sharing with you is helping you along with your board game development. In the meantime, stay safe, and I'll talk to you later. See you later.